Greetings of peace, love, and light, and welcome to Raising SunRays, where we explore the esoteric in parenting. I'm your host, Robyn Ringgold, and our show today is using the emotional freedom technique, EFT, to treat physical and emotional issues in children. Our special guest today is joining us from Australia, and her name is Jenny Johnston. Welcome, Jenny.
Thanks for having me, Robyn.
Absolutely. Jenny has been a qualified clinical hypnotherapist and EFT practitioner since 2005, a qualified advanced past life regression therapist, and a matrix re-imprinting practitioner since 2009, and an EFT universe trainer since 2010. She's the founder of Quantum EFT for the soul, and she has combined all of her knowledge to her spiritual learning as taught by Cryon, a channeled energy, into quantum EFT and mining the Akash. In 2014, Jenny published her book, Tapping into Past Lives, which became an Amazon bestseller the next day. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So Jenny, for those that don't know about EFT or emotional freedom technique, could you just explain a little bit about what is it and how does it work?
Okay, so I sometimes call it waking hypnosis, because what we're doing when we're tapping on meridian points, the research shows that the brain waves go down into the subconscious range. So we're actually working with the subconscious while consciousness is present. At the same time, what we're doing is speaking directly to the body. So that part of the brain that switches on or off the fight or flight response, that's the part of the brain, the primitive part, the amygdala, the hippocampus, that we're telling relax. Shut off the cortisol and the adrenaline and the sympathetic nervous system response, and turn on the parasympathetic nervous system response, the relaxation response, the cell repair hormone, DHEA. So basically what we're doing is consciousness is present, subconsciousness is present, so we're working like as in hypnosis, and also we're working directly with the body's electromagnetic energy system, and we're speaking directly to that part of the brain that turns on the fight or flight stress response, the adrenaline, the cortisol, and we're telling it to switch off.
Wow. So, I've heard of EFT before, and prior to my session with you, I had not heard of quantum EFT. So what's the difference between just emotional freedom technique or EFT and quantum EFT?
Okay, so quantum EFT, we're working in time and space, so anywhere that we are taken. So not only, what's going on now, but we'll work in time and space back to a 3-year-old, or back to in the womb, or back to another lifetime, where we're working in that space in the now, and we release the stress response from that younger you, or that you in another life, and the people around you. So what we do is we turn a stress response and a belief that was created at that time into a relaxation response and into a new positive belief.
Okay. Excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about meridians for those that don't understand how meridians work in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've got a couple of little tools here that I show people. One is the UFO ball. So it's got 2 little metal parts, and when I touch them, makes a noise like a little UFO, so that's pretty cool. But what it's showing is that my electromagnetic energy makes that work. So we are beings of electromagnetic energy. And when we have an ECG or an MRI or any sort of picture of our body, what they're doing is taking a picture of the electromagnetic energy of those organs or of the body. Now, I also have an AccuPen here, and I might need to come closer for this. The AccuPen will show you when there's an increase. So, can you hear that?
Yes, absolutely. I hear it. So does that mean that there's more energy stored there, or I mean, so what
So what it is,
exactly?
it's like a portal into the energy system. So where the energy flows through the meridians, this is like a portal. So when we're tapping on that portal, that opening, we're actually sending a pulse through into the meridian system. Now, when there's an emotional trauma or an emotional feeling, it will block the flow of our electromagnetic energy. And when there's a blockage, then that's when you have the opportunity for dis-ease. And so what we want to do is tap to release those blockages and allow the electromagnetic energy to flow freely in our bodies. And when that's occurring, when we're in a state of balance, then the body can heal itself naturally. And of course, when we're tapping and we switch it from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system and the relaxation response, we're also releasing DHEA, which is the cell repair hormone. So if you're in fight or flight and in stress a lot, then your body's not able to heal itself, and you might find that you're sick a lot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So how do these emotions or traumas or experiences from our past or our childhoods, how do they get trapped into, our meridians in our bodies? So how can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so the brain is a machine and it's there to protect us. And basically, let me give you an example of a client who had fear of flying and claustrophobia. And when we traced it back, it went back to when they were playing a game of hide and seek when she was 3 with her brothers and sisters, and she was locked into the boot of a car, just for a few minutes, but they were playing hide and seek and they shut the boot and she was trapped in there. And even for a couple of minutes, to a 3-year-old, that is panic, that is life or death. This is, I don't know how to get out of here. So it's got all the characteristics of a trauma. Yeah. And we mightn't think much of it as an adult, but as a child, that is life-threatening. That is, I'm all alone. I can't get out of here. This is unexpected. All the characteristics of trauma. And what that does is then gets inlaid into the body as an alarm, and a conditioned stress response occurs. So then when something similar happens and they find themselves, locked gone to a public toilet and they can't get the door open, immediately the body goes straight back into that fight or flight response saying, I'm locked in, I can't get out. Yes. And it's just a generalization from the first one. It's like, when that happened, this occurred. Now this is happening, which is similar to that, and this occurs. So the conditioned response comes, boom, straight from the automatic nervous system, straight from subconscious, and you react that way. And then it gets bigger and bigger, so that then when you get on a plane and you see the door closing, suddenly that comes back into play. I can't get out. I'm trapped here.
Right.
But it all happens at a subconscious level.
Right, right. So if I'm a parent and I'm kind of watching my children's behavior and I see something alarming, like maybe even like bedwetting, So walk me through the process. If I'm a parent and I know about tapping or EFT, how might I use that to help my child?
So children clear really quickly with tapping because they don't have all the traumatic experiences and the automatic patterns that we've achieved through a lifetime. They only have a small experience of that. However, I have noticed that it goes back. It can go back to other lifetimes as well. But what we can do is tap on exactly what's there for them. And when we're tapping for what's there for them, they're using their words and their experience. So if you were doing it for bedwetting, what does that feel like for you when you wake up and realize the bed's wet? Or what is it that you think about before you go to bed at night? Or what are your fears? Are you afraid daddy's going to yell at you? Are you afraid of, all of these things? So whatever's there for them, that's what we tap on, because it's their experience and what they're feeling in their body. So if they're feeling their stress or their fear in their stomach as a churning, then that's what you would tap on. If they feel it like a heaviness in their chest or like a headache or like a lump in the throat, that's what you would tap on. And you always use their words and then let them know that they're safe and they're okay. As an adult, we say we accept ourselves. I love and accept myself, even though I've got all of these issues. But for a kid, you just say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm still lovable, or anything that makes them feel good and positive about themselves.
Right, exactly. So what came to my mind is, as a parent, if I'm carrying all these fears or, anxieties, then of course I'm going to be giving these things to my child as well. So, I'm almost thinking that, as a parent, it's so important for us to use this emotional freedom technique or tapping, so that we can be better parents to our children and not give them or pass on some of these fears that we have, or anxieties or traumas even that we've experienced.
Yes, exactly. And when people come to me with a child issue, like their child has an issue, I will often say, well, I need to work with you first, because what's there for you when you think about this? And, like the example you just gave about bedwetting, well, maybe they'd been a bedwetter as a child and they got beaten for it, or they got humiliated for it, or whatever. Then we need to work with what's there for the parent first, so that they're neutral about it, so that there's no triggering happening for them that is then noticed by the child or engaged with by the child, because as you said, the energy of the child and the energy of the parent are very linked.
Yes, yes. So from your experience, can you give some examples of some conditions or signs that children have had that you've helped with in the past through tapping?
Yes, so there's one that comes to mind is a child that was afraid to sleep at night with the lights off, that we worked with, of what was coming up with them. And I bring the spirituality into it as well with quantum EFT. So we bring in their guides to protect them once we've released whatever fears are there. And it might come from, I remember one child was really scared, especially when their parents went out at night, if they were left with a babysitter or something. And it went back to watching the movie Home Alone.
Wow.
And so we had to clear that, because, of course, from the age of 0 to 7 or 8, you're in that hypnagogic state where everything is just downloaded into subconscious as truth. So having kids watch even TV shows or movies between the ages of 0 and 7, they're taking it on as truth. I remember once when my son was young and there was a really big storm outside, and we had a little black fluffy dog, and he was only about 3 or 4, and he was screaming that we had to get the dog in or it might get taken away in a cyclone, because he'd watched The Wizard of Oz.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that before about children not being able to distinguish. Yes.
So he was really panicking for that. So, tapping can help them to relax very quickly, because it's dealing directly with their energy system and with their subconscious brainwaves, with the automatic nervous system, with that part of the brain that is the fight or flight response. So they can relax very quickly and feel safe and know that everything's okay, especially when you're saying the words out loud. You're safe, you're okay, everything's fine. Letting my body know everything's fine. Releasing all the fears, all the imaginations, everything that I imagine, the what ifs. So, and you can find that out. So I remember babysitting for my nieces once, and before they were going to bed, I said, let's do some tapping. And what is it? What's something that you wish wasn't there, or something that you were afraid of, or something that brought up fear or a bad experience or a bad memory. And one of my nieces said that she'd had this dream where her younger sister had fallen off a boat and she couldn't save her. And so I just said, well, it's only a dream, but how did that make you feel? And so we just tapped on that. And then she was really happy to go to bed again, because one of the fears was, what if I have a dream like that again? What if I can't save her? You know, that sort of thing. So, and her parents didn't know anything of this. It was only because I asked, what is there for you that you'd like to release, let go of, that's a bit yucky, that you don't like, you know. Another niece said, I don't like leaving my door open on my bedroom because I'm afraid next door's cat will come into our house and up the stairs and sleep on my bed. Totally not what you'd be thinking that they'd be afraid to leave their door open for. Right. And that's why it's important to ask. And then, well, how does that make you feel? Where does that come from? When have you ever seen the cat in the house? Or, you know, just tapping on whatever's there for them. I've tapped with people, again, fear of flying, where they'd seen as a child a movie with a plane blowing up and people falling out of the sky, you know, that sort of thing, that they had no idea of until they got on a plane and they actually had a situation where the pilot said, we're not sure if the landing gear has come down.
Wow.
And they put everyone into brace position. And, of course, you know, the hostesses are yelling out, brace, brace, brace. And so there was all these fears. And when I released all of that, all of everything she heard, everything she felt, then it went back to childhood and seeing this movie of people out of the plane. So there's so much that our brains and our bodies hold on to, and a lot of it is taken on in childhood. So even if you tap with your child every night before you go to bed and say, what is it that came up today that you'd like to rub out? You know, just like rubbing out, going outside of the lines when you're colouring in or something like that. You want to clear it. So it's like, what happened at school today that wasn't so good, that made you feel bad? Or what happened, you know, is there anything that you'd like to tap on to feel good about instead of feeling bad about it? And even having your children tune into their thoughts. You know, our self-talk and our negative self-talk can start from a very young age. And so we want to stamp out the negative self-talk that we mightn't even know about unless we ask. Yes. What's there for you? What do you think about when you go to school? What do you say to yourself when there's a writing competition at school, or you know, children learn from a very young age to compare themselves to others, compare themselves to siblings. And so being able to release that fear of failing, that fear of competition, that all the what ifs, what if I'm not good enough, you know, which is the biggest belief that most human beings grow up learning, but they'll have their own experience of that. So being able to find where that comes from and release it.
So what comes to my mind is that as parents, we really need to slow down, connect with our kids, you know, at night before bedtime, you know, like you said, spending this time with them, really tuning into their emotional selves, really making sure that they're not, you know, getting the whole negative self-talk early on, even the TV watching. I mean, I'm just thinking of so many things that, you know, as a parent, we really just have to be aware and centered and grounded ourselves so that we can be present, you know, for our children. It was really interesting to me when I had the tapping session with you, or my quantum EFT. As soon as we started tapping, all these memories just kind of like flooded and just kind of came out. So is that typically what happens? Yeah.
Yes, and the emotions. So often people will say to me, "Oh, I didn't expect to get this emotional," or where did that all come from? And often when people ask me what do I do, I say I make people cry, and I'm very good at it. But that's just because when we're tapping into memories that we want to clear, and they will often be bringing up emotions. And uh, when we're focused on things that make us feel sad or embarrassed or humiliated or guilty or feeling shame from, then it is going to bring up emotion. But I also let them know is that when we're tuning into something like that and it's bringing up emotion, that's great. But at the same time, we're also processing it. So it will come up like a wave and then it will start going down. And we need to tune into it in order to process it and release it. Because if we're only sort of tuning into a quarter of it and not tuning into it fully, then we're only processing a quarter of it.
Right.
So we need to tune into it fully, and we do that by, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you think? All the ways that memory was actually processed into your brain
Right.
as an experience, so that you can then release. It was the way my mother looked at me. It was the sound of my father's voice, the tone of his voice, the things that really stood out for them, and the
Right.
way it was processed into their body.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about past lives. So I know for myself, I was thinking, from a very early age, I had a severe fear of dogs. And I didn't have an experience. I was not bitten. I was not threatened. So is that the kind of thing that you might think would come from a past life?
It could do, and sometimes it comes from pre-consciousness, so that consciously you may not remember. You might have even been, a child, a baby in a pram when you were frightened by a dog that jumped onto the pram or something, and all you saw was the face of the dog, and that would be imprinted into you as a fear response.
Okay.
But yes, I've had many things where people have gone to past lives. And what I do is when we tune into the fear response, I ask the body to process and release it all the way back to its origin, wherever that may be, in this life or any life. And so instantly the body will search for that. Like on a computer, when you're searching for a file, it will search everywhere for that and then go, oh, there it is. And then bing, up pops a memory from another life. And you go, wow, where did that come from?
Wow. Wow.
Like I remember working with a lady on one of my workshops, and it was just for a quick demonstration. And I said, "Has anyone got a pain that we can work on?" And she said, "Yeah, I've got this pain in my stomach." I said, "Yeah, that's good. Let's work on that." And the more we tapped on it, the more she tuned into it. There was sadness. Then she felt like it was a baby. Then she felt like there was loss, and it was like loss of a baby boy. And I already knew a bit about her, and she had two girls. And I said, have you ever lost a baby boy in this life? And she said, no. I said, is this from this life? And she said, no. And then we tuned into it, and she'd lost a baby boy in another life. And she said that now makes sense why when a friend of hers lost a baby and it was a baby boy, it was like she'd lost it. She was so emotional, so hurt. It was so hard for her. And she thought, this is disproportionate to my experience. This is a friend of mine, and I'm reacting as if it's happened to me. And she'd had another friend that had lost a baby, and it was a girl, and there was not the same reaction.
Wow.
So it was particular to a baby boy, and that's once we traced it back to a past life and cleared that, then she's gone, oh, no wonder I reacted that way when my friend lost a baby boy. It was like it had happened to me. So she got that realization afterwards, after we'd traced it back and instructed the body to process and release it all the way back to its origin. So, I've worked with like an 8.5-year-old with past life and quantum once, and that was quite amazing because we cleared stuff from past life, but then when we went looking for the skills and the talents that he needed for himself in the classroom, he had difficulty focusing and concentrating. We went to a lifetime that he said, oh, this is my next life. He said, this is in the future. And it went to a lifetime where he was 34. He was a jet pilot. He had to be very focused, very concentrated. He was calm when there was distractions around him and all of that sort of thing. And then we brought that back and tapped it into him, into his present self. And so that was really cool because he just instantly went. Children are very good with the part of their brain that we call imagination, which is also the part that spirit connects to us through. And children are very easily connecting to their imagination. Yes. And so they'll go to these places very easily.
So could a person actually read your book and learn the technique, or would they have to attend a workshop? Or, is it something you can learn and then do at home?
Well, in my book, so in the book, there are many stories, and with a lot of the stories, I have links to the video from that story. There's also a link to a page where it's got lots and lots of, interesting that I just opened that, mother-daughter relationship transformed. So that was really interesting because she said she had, there was something not right with her relationship with her daughter, and it was like her daughter hated her. There was no connection. She wouldn't even look at her, that sort of thing. And when we went back and focused on where does this come from, it went back to England and World War II, and how she was very connected with her mother, who had been injured in the war, and her mother died, and she was very sad. And it was all about the sadness and the grief. But at the same time, she was pregnant. And there was no love given to that baby in the womb. It was all about sadness and grief. There was no focus on love and connection. And that soul in her belly was also the soul of her daughter in this life. And so when we cleared the sadness, and then we had her focus on the love and the connection to the baby in her belly, and apologizing for not paying her attention and then sending the love. When she got home, her daughter was immediately different.
Wow.
In this life.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking how interesting it is that, everything can be healed. I mean, that's so amazing. It can be healed. It can be worked on. It can be released and let go. So that's just amazing.
And also when you look at your own children, sometimes they're both born from the same mother and father, and yet they can be so very different. And some can have fears that, fear of water when there's nothing been happened around water, or fear of dogs like you had. And that can come from another lifetime where they're drowned in another life. Fear of heights can also come from another life. I remember when I was running a workshop in Seattle, there was a lady there who had both fear of water and fear of heights. Fear of water went back to drowning. We cleared that in another life. And also fear of heights went back to another life where she fell out of a tree, or he did. And we cleared that. And then we went looking for the gifts and the positive experiences in other lives. And what we found was that she was in another life. She was like a pygmy native person, like only very small, but climbing up to the tops of these really tall trees and looking out around the forest from these really tall trees and having no fear whatsoever and just enjoying it and loving it, and it was just natural for her, and she brought that back with her. And shortly after that, we went up to the Seattle the tower thing. What's that called? The eye or something. The needle. That's it.
Yeah.
We went up there, and she was looking over, going, "There's no way I could have ever done this before." We sat in the restaurant, the revolving restaurant, and had a meal. She said, "I could never ever have done this before."
Wow.
And that had come from past lives,
Wow.
and had been
So,
re-triggered and re-triggered in this life.
right. So, so you were, I kind of diverted you from my original question about once you learn this, like, can you do this for yourself, or do you need a practitioner
Oh, yes.
to guide?
Sorry. Yes. That's where I was getting. The videos in here will show you how
Yes.
to do it. So there's lots of stories of what happened, but then if you watch the videos, you see how it's done. But of course, seeing how it's done and then doing it for yourself is completely different. So yes, I do recommend that you find a practitioner, so somebody that's either done my workshops or come through me. So if you go to my website, jennyjohnston.com.au or quantumeft.com.au, there is a free online scheduler, and you can make a free 15-minute appointment with me, and we can discuss what's going on, and I can recommend what I recommend for you. But also, if anyone wants to book a 1-hour session with me, if they are on my online scheduler and they scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is Australian and US prices for what I call a concession price, which is for people who are unemployed or on the pension or something like that. It's a reduced cost price. So I'm willing to offer that to anyone who's watching the video. If they book an appointment with me at a reduced cost, they just need to put in the notes that they found me through you, and I'll accept that reduced cost session with me.
Wonderful. Thank you. I mean, I highly recommend your sessions. I mean, I had an amazing experience that I'm not going to go into detail about because it's personal, but it was really amazing, and I'm still having the wonderful effects from it. So I was wondering, could you actually demonstrate a quick tapping just so that people can understand kind of how this works?
So let's go with your fear of dogs.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So if you think of an experience where you felt that fear of dogs, do you have a memory?
Yes, I do.
And how old were you?
So let's see. Actually, in the house that I lived in growing up, there was a neighbor who had a dog, and we didn't have a fence. So I think he thought that our property was also his. And so I was probably, I want to say maybe 10,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
we've had some experiences.
Okay. So when you think about that as a 10-year-old and that this dog fear experience, where do you feel that in your body? Where is
In
the
my
fear?
in my
In your
stomach.
stomach. And is it a churning? Is it describe that feeling in your stomach?
Kind of more like knifing pain.
Yeah. So
Yes.
like a knifing pain in the stomach. And what is it out of 10?
It's pretty dull. Maybe 3.
Okay. So I want to start tapping on the side of the hand. So this is the karate chop point.
Okay.
So while you're tapping there, I want you to repeat my words
Okay.
and just notice what comes up in the back of your mind or in the memory of what you saw, what you heard, what you felt as we're tapping. And we'll just start off with the basics. Even though I have this dog memory when I was 10,
Even though I have this dog memory when I was 10,
and I feel it like a dull knife feeling in my stomach,
and I feel it like a dull knife feeling in my stomach,
and a churning in my stomach,
and a churning in my stomach,
I accept myself and my body
I accept myself and my body
deeply and completely.
deeply and completely.
Even though I have this dog memory
Even though I have this dog memory,
and I feel the fear in my stomach,
and I feel the fear in my stomach,
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
Even though my stomach remembers this dog fear,
Even though my stomach remembers this dog fear,
like a dull knife feeling,
like a dull knife feeling,
I accept myself and I ask my body to release it anyhow.
and I ask my body to release it anyhow.
Top of the head, this dog memory,
This dog memory,
this feeling in my stomach,
this feeling in my stomach,
when I remember being 10 years old
when I remember being 10 years old,
and the neighbour's dog thought our yard was their yard,
and the neighbor's dog thought our yard was their yard.
this dog fear memory,
This dog fear memory
that my stomach still remembers.
that my stomach still remembers.
I can still feel it like a dull knife feeling in my stomach.
I can still feel it like a dull knife feeling in my stomach.
And I thank my stomach for holding on to it to protect me.
And I thank my stomach for holding on to it to protect me.
But it no longer serves me.
But it no longer serves me.
And I instruct my stomach to release it and let it go.
And I instruct my stomach to release it and let go.
All the way back to when I was 10.
All the way back to when I was 10.
Releasing and letting go of this stomach fear.
Releasing and letting go of the stomach fear.
Even when I remember that dog memory.
Even when I remember that dog memory.
When I was 10 years old.
When I was 10 years old.
When the dog thought our yard was his yard.
When the dog thought our yard was his yard.
Everything I saw.
Everything I saw.
Everything I heard.
Everything I heard.
All the fear and terror in my body.
All the fear and terror in my body.
I choose to process it and let it go.
I choose to process it and let it go.
All the way back to when I was 10.
All the way back to when I was 10.
Releasing this dog fear memory out of my stomach.
Releasing this in my stomach.
Okay. So how does that feel now when you think of that dog memory?
It feels good. And I think the interesting thing is when I first started telling you about my fear of dogs, I didn't relate it to that memory. I related it to maybe something from a past life because I didn't remember having memories of, this incident with this dog. And that came right into my mind. But I mean, basically, I feel like I'm buzzing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So is that just going through the meridians?
Yeah. And I mean, not everything is going to have its origin in a past life, but there may be other lifetimes where you've experienced things around a dog that has been fearful. But we need to release what's there for you now in this life.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so when you think about that 10-year-old memory now, does it still bring up fear in your body?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
When you remember the dog at the window with his paws up there and he's barking away?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't feel it in my stomach anymore. Wow.
Great.
That's absolutely
amazing. And so see how that works so well for kids. If a child has, imagine if we had have tapped on you straight away at 10 years old, the dog phobia would not have been there for the rest of your life. I mean, we've got rid of it now, but you can test that with some dogs. But I think you'll find I think you'll find your response is neutral now.
Yes. So, I encourage everyone to look up your book, Tapping into Past Lives on Amazon. Also to go to your website for the free 15-minute consultation, and even to actually book a consultation for themselves, or even to discuss issues with their children. I am so happy that you joined us today, and I'm so grateful for your time. And did you want to have any closing remarks?
Yes, I've just remembered too. I've got the first 3 chapters of my book are free on another website, tappingintopastlives.tv. And that's HTTP with no S. Tappingintopastlives.tv, and you get lots more videos from sessions I did in the North America tours in 2015 and 16. So you can see a lot of the ways that I've done that with lots of other people.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, thank you. And once again, I'm so grateful for your time. And to all of my listeners, I leave you in peace, love, and light. And please remember to subscribe to Raising SunRays. Thank you.